Welcome to the AWS for AI podcast.
Welcome to AWS for AI, the podcast where we explore cutting-edge AI solutions and the innovators behind them. I'm your host, Hamza Mimi, AWS Solutions Architect. And I'm today thrilled to welcome Eduardo Ordax, Principal Specialist Generative AI Go-to-Market, talking to hundreds of customers around EMEA and the world about their AI strategies and technical challenges. Eduardo has been recognized as the #1 most influential person in AI in Spain and ranks number 14 globally, according to Favicon 2025 Top 200 LinkedIn Creators List. Eduardo claims first position, though, if you count for humors. With a following of over 150,000 professionals on LinkedIn, he's a leading voice in the AI community. Eduardo is also teaching AI in master's and postgraduates program and is a regular speaker at international AI events. In this episode, we'll delve into Eduardo's insights on the generative AI key trends, AWS approach to responsible innovation, and the future of AI-powered solutions, including Agentic systems and enterprise-scale adoption. Eduardo, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Welcome to the show.
Pleasure is mine, and I really hope after the podcast, somebody's going to give me this #1 globally in terms of AI humor. I'm really looking forward for it.
I can recognize that. So before diving deep into the technical aspects and the technical discussion, I want to speak to Eduardo, the person. Can you tell me a bit about yourself, how you became our principal GTM for generative AI, and also maybe talk about your organization's goal and objectives?
Yeah, so I'm a real person. Sometimes, like I'm listening to, hey, are you a real person or not? Yeah, I'm a real person. I'm here. I'm not an avatar. I've been at AWS for the last 3 years, working with data and AI. In the past, it was more data. Right now, everything seems to be AI. For the last 8 to 10 years, I'm principal. It sounds super long to me, the title, like principal go-to-market. I usually say, like I'm helping customers around the globe trying to, like make sure they're going to leverage AI to create and to bring a business value. So this is what I'm doing most of the time. And everything at AWS is about the scaling. So I'm part of an organization that is called Worldwide Specialist Organization. So we are a team of specialists across many different domains. AI is one of them, but you have data, you have compute, you have security, you have networking. And yeah, this is what we are doing. We are trying to analyze, like the customer problems, how we can use AI to solve their problems and to bring some value. That it seems to be very easy on the paper. It's a different story on the real life.
Exactly. So WWSO, the Worldwide Specialist Organization, can you talk a bit more about the WWSO for AI? What's the vision in EMEA and across the world? I know you're talking about two customers, not only in EMEA.
So we have only one vision within AWS about AI. And I think this vision comes from our roots in the way that we have been using ML for such a long time, right? I remember to, listen to Jeff Bezos saying most valuable item was data. That's why we were able to, make recommendations, to automate our fulfillment centers, and so on and so forth. So, we have been using AI ML since the very beginning. We want to bring the same vision to customers. AI is something that it can enable us to, improve the customer experience, to boost the productivity of our people, to automate things, right? So we are trying to develop this strategy with our customers and trying to help them by building their foundations and the different, what we call the primitives. So the customers, they're going to be able, based on our different services, to build all, these different solutions for them. This has been our strategy from the very beginning, and this is what we are trying, to help customers. So as part of WWSO, of course, we need to be aware about all different services, not only from AWS, but also what is happening on the market. For example, open source community, they are, leveraging so many things lately based on AI. So we need to be aware about how to integrate all these different systems within our ecosystem. But yeah, this is part of our philosophy. And I mean, like, we have been super successful by using AI ML in our own processes. And this is what we're trying to do with our customers.
Brilliant. And you've been busy for the last few years. You've been talking to customers across the world, mostly in EMEA, but across the world. And you've seen a lot of trends since GPT came out and all the advancement coming from there. I want to dive deep into all of the trends that you've seen, but let me start with this one. Is generative AI a hype, or there is a true value there?
Well, I mean, like, AI now, it's cool, right? I usually give the same example. I remember 3 years ago, my friends didn't have any idea about what I was doing for a living. Yeah, they know that I was working, like at AWS, but like if you were asking them, like, hey, what are you doing for a living? No idea. And right now, everyone wants to talk to me about AI. Hey, have you seen this? How it's going to help this other service? Have you tried this application? So, of course, there is a lot of hype around AI because it's cool and because everyone wants to work in this space. But doesn't mean that, like, having this hype doesn't mean that it's not going to bring any value. So, of course, there's a lot of hype because everyone wants to be in this space. But there's something, like, a part about, like, GenAI is bringing value or is not bringing value to the table.
So if you go into the enterprise space, it's a different discussions from what we see in the public space. And you've been talking mostly to the enterprise customers in different verticals. From your perspective, what was the thing that successful enterprise or companies or public sector organizations, they did to get to a successful place where they use generative AI properly, I would say, and the bad things that made unsuccessful companies do?
Like, I like when you say it about, like, enterprise users and consumers. And many times this reminds me to the iPhone moment. Remember, like, like many years ago when, like in the enterprise segment, everyone was using a BlackBerry, right? And, like, iPhone came into the table. And because it was not like a system that has been validated to be used internally, like the people, they were like bringing your own device to the company, right? And this is what is happening in some manner with AI. For the last 5 to 10 years, the companies, they were, like using AI or email to, I don't know, to do customer segmentation, to do recommendations, to predict churn. But it was something very limited to just few number of folks. You were a data scientist, you were an ML engineer, you were a data analyst or even data engineer, but very restricted to, like a limited number of folks. And since, like the release of ChatGPT, this became completely different manner because everyone is using it, right? Yeah. And everyone wants to use it at their place of work. But this is the challenge. It's super easy to use for, like a personal purposes as a consumer. I mean, like I can prompt any LLM and it's going to bring value into the table very easily. But what that it happens when, like you are managing data that is not yours, that needs to be, like a reliable in your own environment. And this is the challenge that, like many companies are facing right now. They think that, like it's the same thing using AI for your personal purpose and for the, like a corporate purpose. So you were asking me about, like, what are the companies that are being successful? I will say there are many reasons, right? But probably right now for me, the most important reasons is like all these companies that they have invested huge amount of money, resources, training on building what I call these data foundations. So they have, like a good quality data, clean data, governed data, accurate data. For them transition into AI, ML, it's super natural. It's like, hey, it's like, like you are learning how to ride the bike and you're, like, as soon as you're learning, it's very easy to you for like to go from one place to the other. AI is pretty much the same as soon as you have built the foundations with data. The people or the companies that they want to be AI first, and even they are not data driven, and they think about AI as the end goal, these are the companies that usually fail, like on many different tries, because, like they are missing the point. AI is just something that is going to enable us to achieve our latest goal. And again, there are many different reasons that we can touch it today. But I would say, for me, at least, based on what I'm seeing right now, This is the most important aspect.
Okay. So the data foundation for you is what sets the successful enterprise companies, organizations apart from the ones that fail to bring value, maybe use AI but not bring value to their business. Once you set that data foundation, and that can be defined in different ways as well, but once you set a reasonable data foundation, what, from your perspective, are the main challenges that these companies are facing in order to get to that level where AI is really bringing value?
Yeah, so sometimes, like even we have to take some step backs, and it's not actually about technology. It's even about people. And it's happening around data. It's happening around AI. You have to put the right skills in place, right? But like being data foundation or being like data driving needs to come from a cultural point of view. Even it's not a strategy, right? You have seen this, like a common quote about like. Culture, it's a strategy for breakfast, right? So you need to think from a cultural point of view about, okay, decisions that you are going to take, they are going to be based on data. And companies, they are like working across many different systems, right? And you need to understand how you are going to build your data pipeline. So all the data is on your single data lake. Who is going to get access to this data? Who is going to be the owner of this data? Who is going to be the data that, like it's actually bringing value versus the data is like completely useless. So this is what it means, like, like building these data foundations. And again, like transition. And because at the end, like for me, data is like the first step of, like being like an AI company, right? And the first step always starts by the data part. So as soon as you are fixing this, the first step, everything becomes easier to do. So yeah, many different things involved to data. But again, you need to have the culture around it.
So outside of the cultural part, there is, and we can double click on that later on, there is also the technical parts. And we've seen tremendous maturity coming in AI, and we're having much more mature tools and ways of doing things. What are the key elements that you would advise anyone implementing their first use case on AI to think about before actually the AI itself? Like how to make sure that that final result will actually bring value.
Yeah, so there is something that we call internally at Amazon, this part of our philosophy that we call like working backwards, right? So working backwards means like we are not going to deploy one single line of code until we understand which is the problem that we are trying to solve. And this is actually the opposite to what many people is doing right now, is they are going directly to say like, okay, I'm going to prompt this LLM, or I'm going to use this technology, I'm going to use this application, because like any developer, they need to write the stuff, right? So we used to say like, okay, working backwards, you understand which is the problem that you are trying to solve, which is going to be the benefit for solving the problem for the customer, how is going to be the experience for the customer, and how you are going to be able to measure success. So if you have a problem that you're trying to achieve, this is what you need to think about it. And like working backwards is going to give you the implementation of the solution to that problem. And maybe it could be AI, maybe it's not going to be AI, but like if you know how to measure, because you can use, I don't know, let's create a generative AI chatbot, right? And it's cool, it's funny. How you're measuring that it's working good or not? I mean, like, are you improving the NPS of the customer? Are you improving the customer satisfaction? Are you reducing the number of calls? Are you reducing the number that it takes to you to solve that problem? These are the KPIs that they are important for the business. Once you solve that, you are in the good path. Otherwise, you are just wasting your time.
This also goes into the GenAI theater, where everyone needs to show they have implemented GenAI for some kind of use case. How would companies actually start avoiding that GenAI theater?
Yeah, so it's funny. This reminds me to some like advertiser that I've seen in Spain a few time ago. They were announcing some sunglasses, and the company was saying like, "Hey, these are the first AI sunglasses." And I was talking about Ray-Ban. I was talking about like some normal glasses that supposedly has been designed based on AI. And that made me think like, hey, you are just trying to tell me like, hey, this is like an AI thing, but actually it's not. I mean, like, it's not giving me any value. There are just normal glasses, right? So this is what I call many times this AI theater, right? And you need to avoid that because, again, I mean, like, I've seen many use cases where AI can be useless, and some use cases where you need to achieve or you need to understand the potential. And most of the times, trust me, the most simple use cases, of course, they are not the most attractive, they are not the coolest use cases, but the most simple use cases, they are typically, most of the times, the ones that are bringing more value into the table in many different ways, right? And this is what we need to avoid with this, like AI theater that is happening in many different ways.
I want to go back to the use cases, and I know you've seen a lot of them. We've talked about the trends that are actually happening, that happened in the last few years. What do you think are the trends coming in the next 6-12 months in AI?
Yeah, so this is something that, like they usually ask me very often, and it's complicated to answer in the way that, like, if I knew in advance that, like, NVIDIA stocks were going to grow exponentially, maybe I wouldn't be here right now. I would take in the sun in an island. But anyway, apart from that, if you're asking me, okay, what I'm expecting to see
We're having fun.
what we are expecting to see the next 6 to 12 months. I mean, like, it's not an evidence that, like, the world of agents, they are going to take the world in many different aspects. And why agents is so important? People usually ask me like, hey, but we already had LLMs, and agents is not something new, right? But LLMs, they are not meaningful in the way that you need to prompt the LLMs to get a result, but it still needs a lot of like manual stuff in between, right? AI agents, it's a different thing. It's like you can go from end to end, achieving a goal that is going to take you like one step further. So, and we can discuss later about the world of agents, the difference, and so on. But I think AI agent is going to be something super important within the next 6 to 12 months. Still, we need to fix or we need to solve many different problems. This is going to be one of the trends. And it's like, and I like to explain in this different aspect that it's super simple. It's like we have LLMs. We have LLMs taking actions that we could say like, okay, an agent is an LLM taking actions in the virtual or digital world. After LLMs taking actions in the digital world, we will have LLMs taking actions in the physical world. And this becomes to be the world of humanoids, robots, and so on. I think this is going to be something big. Maybe we'll need a bit more of time, 36 months to 5 years. And I want to believe that one of the trends is going to be like new architectural approaches to make sure that, like LLMs, they take one step further versus what we have today. More like a trend is like my bet for the next 12 months. I really hope to see something extraordinary there. I'm talking to founders around the world, and I've seen some amazing stuff, and I want to believe something is going to come within the next 12 months.
We will watch that very closely. I want now to go back to the use cases, and we spend some time here. Can you talk about some of the key use cases you've seen bring a lot of value in different industries and different verticals? Maybe you can select one vertical and share some use cases.
There are some use cases that they are, like cross-industry. If you ask me for the top 3 use cases, maybe it's not very innovative, but, like top 3 use cases across industries, like the first one, if you ask to any software engineer, any developer, how they are working today, it has changed completely because they are using AI, like in many different ways to generate code, to comment the code, to document the code, to test it, and so on. So code generation is probably top use case. Second one is, like chatbot, assistants, everything that, like requires an interaction with the end user. And the last one is RAG. RAG as a, as the use case that you have people wanted to talk to the data. They want to get insights from the data. They want to know what's going on in their data. So it's RAG like this use case, right? This is more like cross-industry. If you're asking me about, like some other use cases, like, for example, like if you go to the car industry, you see like BMW, for example. This is a very cool use case because they're using AI to design different models of the cars they are even using AI to generate new components. And this allowed them to iterate faster, to come with most innovative ideas. And this was something that is completely new. So I really like these use cases because it's something that is completely, transformative to their business. But, if we look to another, industry that maybe is not like super innovative, like, engineering and so on. I remember this company was from Germany. They were using AI to reply to different RFQs about, making building here on the other side. So, the time that it took to them for the engineers to reply to this, it was around, 2 to 3 months. Thanks to AI, they can analyze, economic situations. They can analyze, technical requirements, and they can come up with a draft that, of course, then, the engineers, they're going to iterate over them in just a couple of days. So we are, reducing the time that we are able, to sip or, to give answers. So from 2 to 3 months to 2 to 3 days to have like the first draft. And I really like the use case because they were able very easily to provide the value to their customers. And I think that was pretty good.
With always these use cases, I've seen the human in the loop is always part of that solution. Can you talk maybe a bit about maybe future use cases where humans are not part of the loop anymore? Will we get to that maturity level where some use cases we're just comfortable leaving that to the AI?
There is this, it's not me talking about that, right? So if somebody says like, hey, you are lying, actually it's not me. There is this report from Gartner that it's saying that by 2028, 30% of the, SaaS solutions and so on, they are going to be powered by agents and AI in general and AI agents more specifically. But what they were saying is like 15% of these processes, they're going to take a decision with zero human intervention, right? So if you ask me for one example, right? Let's say I had a car accident and I need to make the claim. So typically I took some pictures, I write an email, I send it to the insurance company. They are so late trying to reply. They, hey, this is not the right format. You need to do this. You need to take a copy from the wherever. And it's taking this back and forth like for, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks. You can automate this process with an agent. And, of course, at some point of time, maybe you will need a human. But the first part of the process could be fully automated, fully autonomous, no human intervention. And the experience for the end user is going to be much better. The company is going to save time. It's going to save money. It's going to improve the customer satisfaction. And for me, it's amazing. So agents taking decisions in a fully autonomous way, very easy in this aspect, yeah.
Let me go to the vertical use cases. You've touched on some verticals already, but I want to dive deep into maybe the media vertical.
Yeah.
So can you talk about some use cases you've seen and how this field in particular, I feel is...
And have a great use case. This company, they're actually based here in Dubai. It's called Camb.ai. Camb.ai, it's a startup that they're able to do translation of different, let's say it's a movie, it's a football match, or it's a tennis game. Translation in real time, but it's speech to speech. It's not like, a reading translation. The experience is so amazing that it seems to you that you are watching the football match in Arabic or in Italian or in English. They have trained their own foundation models, and they don't. I really like, how they are, pitching the product, because they are not saying like we are building technology. They say like, hey, we are breaking barriers, and language is a big barrier. So they are not just, actually they are not translating. They are, taking all the context from the football match, for example, and in real time, they can take into account this context to make it available in a different language, right? But let's see, and this have this very nice use case from Novak Djokovic, the tennis player, speaking Spanish, but they were able to do this doubling with their lips. So it seems that he's speaking in Spanish, but actually he's speaking in English. But they do this in real time. So this is transforming, the media environment very easily. And again, it's an example from a company and a startup based here in Dubai that they are doing amazing things. And this is just one example about so many things that they're going to come in the future.
We can probably spend a lot of time talking about
Yeah.
other use cases. I want to go back to the Agentic AI and maybe explain what's the difference between an agent AI, and agentic workflow, and from where we started building LLMs to now talking about agentic AI workflows.
So let's start from the very beginning and from the very basic, right? So let's call, we have an LLM and we prompt an LLM and we get an answer. And we can do something that is, prompt chaining. So you have an LLM, you prompt an LLM, you get an output. This output goes to the next LLM, that it prompts the LLM, it goes to the next one. And you can build something that is called like a workflow, right? Like an AI workflow, where in between you can put different systems. Let's say I'm going to call a Lambda function. But still, it's something that in a very deterministic manner, you are going to orchestrate. If this is the output, needs to go here. If the output is different, it needs to go here. So you define the workflow. It's pure, different steps with deterministic logic. This is a workflow. Well, you have the LLM and then you have the workflow. What is an agent? An agent comes mainly because, the first LLMs, if we take like 1 or 2 years back, they were not very good at reasoning and planning. And when you want to build an agent, you are expecting the agent to take different steps to solve a problem. So if you are not good at planning and you are not good at reasoning, you have a problem, right? New LLMs with these new reasoning capabilities, they are very good at that. So the agent that is or the LLM, let's be correct, is going to break this question or this user query in many different small steps. And it's going to make a plan how to solve this problem. But it's not only the LLM breaking the problem in many different steps trying to solve it. The LLM is going to get access to different tools. So let's say I want to make a call to this API, or I want to retrieve information from this database. So it's going to have access to different tools that you can retrieve information to get more context. But it's going to have also memory. You have short-term memory and long-term memory. Short-term memory means I'm able to remember all my previous steps, because it's not only about the memory that is happening in real time. It's also about I need to remember what I have done before to take the next steps. But you also have long-term memory. Let's say you are interacting with a travel agent. I'm traveling a lot, so because I'm traveling a lot, I always use the same company for flying, right? If I'm talking to this AI agent, I'm not expecting the agent to ask me hey, which company do you want to use? I'm expecting, because I'm talking to you all the time, that you're going to remember this, right? So the agent is using all the memory and can, self-criticize, hey, I'm going to generate this. This is good or not? If it's not good, I'm going to iterate over and over again. And eventually, it's going to give you an answer, right? So the agent is taking different steps and it's giving you an answer, or it's just, taking some action, right? This is an AI agent with some level of autonomy, but this is an AI agent. What that it means, agentic AI? Agentic AI, it's more like a system. When you put many different agents working together. And why you need many different agents? Because still the LLMs are not super good at planning, right? So the approach usually works better when you have simple agents, okay, let's come back to the travel example, right? So you have an agent to make the booking. You have another agent to do the search on the internet. You have another agent to give you the price. So you have different agents. So it's easier because one single agent is responsible for a very defined scope. But at the same time, you need to orchestrate how all these agents, they are going to work together. And this means by agentic AI, where you will have different agents working together, trying to give you an answer or trying to come up with a solution to your problem. And this is what we call agentic AI. So to summarize, you have the LLM, you have maybe LLMs, different LLMs in a very defined manner, what we call an AI workflow, for example. Then you transition into AI agents to finally agentic AI, multiple agents working together.
To that final point, of having multiple agents working together. We've seen advancement in the communication protocols, A2A, MCP. We just actually announced that we are contributing now actively to MCP development, which is a big news. Can you talk about the different protocols, A2A, maybe MCP, what are the differences, and what are these here to solve as a problem?
So the NCP thing, it's funny, right? I think Anthropic did a great work building this specific protocol. But, like I remember the first question, it was about, do we have a lot of AI hub at the moment? So with NCP, it happened something similar. MCP was released in November. I think by that time it was like, hey, this is a cool thing. But not many people pay attention to MCP. And it seems like, like a couple of months ago, it became super popular, super viral, and everyone was talking about, hey, MCP is the solution to all our problems. But let me tell you why MCP is going to solve the complexity of building agents. As I said before, you need to build multiple agents for different purposes. And I said that, like agents or LLMs can make interactions with tools, right? They can make a call to a database. They can make a call to an API. So they can, use tools for getting a purpose. And the LLMs, they cannot execute code. I mean, like you need to send the parameters to another system, so it's going to be executed. And this comes into the picture function calling. Function calling was released or introduced by OpenAI a few time ago. Then Anthropic, they call it tool use, but actually it's the ability where the LLM can transform a request into some specific format. Typically, it's a JSON format that it can send to another system, so it's going to execute a function, let's say an API call, right? The problem with function calling is like if you have different systems, you need to define how this interaction with every single system, how it's going to be. If I need to get access to the Google API for search, it's one way of implementation. If I need to get access to another database, it's a different implementation. And because you are having multiple agents, it's very time consuming. So let's talk about MCP like, like this USB port. You are going to standardize the way LLMs interacts with tools. So you have on one side, on your side, the MCP client, right? That is going to define how you get access to different tools. And in the other side, you have the MCP host. And you make this call from the MCP client to the MCP host through this protocol. And it's going to interact always the same manner, regardless you're like interacted with Cursor or with Windsurf or with this specific API, wherever, right? So it's going to accelerate the way that, you create agents. Of course, you were able to do it before, but it gave you more security, more standardization. That's why it's super important, because it's going to make this process faster. And you were also asking me about A2A, right? So from one side, it's MCPs to standardize how agents interact with different tools or different systems. And A2A is the way how many different agents, they are going to communicate to each other. So you may have agents in Salesforce, for example, that they need to interact with an agent that is living outside the Salesforce ecosystem, for example. You also need to define a protocol to talk to the different agents. So A2A is not something that is going to replace MCP. It's something that is going to live with MCP. And why standardization is important here? Because right now, if you look into the picture, there are like many different frameworks. You have open source frameworks like LangGraph and so on. You also have QAI. We have Bedrock agents. But you need to define some way to standardize, because agents, they are not going to live only within your own ecosystem, but they need to communicate with agents outside your ecosystem. Maybe we're a bit far from there, but it's something that is going to come. That's why A2A is something that I think it's cool, and it's going to be important at some point of time.
Brilliant. I want to touch on some of the services and features that AWS provide for builders that are building these agentic workflows. we can talk about Bedrock, of course. But if you just had to pick 3-4 features, 3-4 services, what would those be for building an agentic architecture at AWS?
There are many different ways to do that. And one of the things that I like about AWS is like we also think about these primitives, right? So we are defining these primitives so the customer, they can choose all these different building blocks to find to build the end solution. So it's not something that is going to be plug and play. You can define how it's going to be. And that's why, like most of the startups, they are working with us. I think it's around, like 90+% of the AI startups, they are working with AWS because they need to have this ability to build and so on. But if you were asking me about some services, how you can create agents with a Bedrock, with AWS. Of course, you have Bedrock, and it's very easy, like to build agents within Bedrock. You just give the instructions. You can create, like action groups. You can define how the agents, they are going to be orchestrated. You can define hierarchies between the agents. And you can say like, okay, this agent is going to get access to this tool, and to this tool, and very easily you can start building agents. But you can also use SageMaker. Many people, that has been working with AWS and AI has used SageMaker in the past. SageMaker is our, like a platform to go to build, like any ML model, big models. Company like TII, for example, they have trained their models on SageMaker, right? So you can even, like deploy an open source version of Llama, the one that is, 1 billion parameters, because you want to have an agent to do something super specific. You can build that on SageMaker. So I would say like, like SageMaker is more for builders, like let's say data scientists, ML engineers, AI engineers. For developers in general, you have a Bedrock where you can access to many different foundation models, many different tools to create agents, to create RAG solutions, to evaluate models. And then you also have, like more solutions for the end users, but I will highlight, like Bedrock and SageMaker.
Perfect. Now with this proliferation of agents that we expect to be even more in the next 6 to 12 months, we see that small language model coming back more to the picture. We also see the open source models coming in very strongly. Recently with DeepSeek R1 and the recent models from DeepSeek now announced, Llama, Mistral, Falcon. We start to get these really, really strong open source models that basically open the door for small language models that are more efficient. Do you see small language models at some point exceeding the use or the value that companies are getting from large language models?
Well, absolutely true. And with techniques with a model distillation, we have seen smaller models that outperforms bigger models, right? It makes sense because, by having a smaller model, it's going to be cheaper and it's going to be faster. So if you can keep the accuracy of the performance from the bigger model, that's something that is going to be great. So small models for sure for agents, but also because for agents you don't need to have a very big model for many different purposes. So you can have this small model to accomplish one specific task. I think it's something that we are going to see more and more often, and why we are not seeing yet a huge explosion of small models. I think it's because a point of maturity on the customer side, because doing things like a model distillation or fine tuning, like, hey, I will use a smaller version by fine tuning a model and so on, or even you can prune the model to reduce. And there are companies like, for example, Multiverse is a startup that it's based on Spain, that they have created this technique that is Compactify, so they can reduce the number of parameters of the model while keeping more or less the same accuracy. And we are not talking about model distillation. We are talking about the same model that they're going to be reduced on site. So there are many different techniques, but the customers in general, they are not mature enough sometimes to go through these techniques. So they stick to a bigger models because they know the performance is going to be good. And But as soon as we move into the world of agents, and agents means to use AI at scale, I mean, like, just make, like, the equation is like, hey, if this model is going to be 100 times cheaper,
Yeah, you run it 100 times more.
that's the point. So we are not there yet, but we are going to be. And about the other question, right, like open source versus proprietary models. I like this point because I think this is something that it's good to have. And I think DeepSeek was something super positive for the AI community. And this was a call to say, like, hey, we're here, and we can create such a good model for, like, a much better price, and everyone can benefit from it, right? So for the last 2 years, we have seen companies leading the AI race, and since the release of, like, a GPT and so on. Right now, it's a different story. You have GPT models, you have Claude, you have DeepSeek, you have Grok, you have Gemini models. So the spectrum of, like, proprietary models is very tight, but it's also happening the same thing with open source models. You have DeepSeek, you have Llama, you have models like Mistral. And if we take a look about what China is doing with Queen models as well, the difference or the gap between, like, proprietary models and open source models is getting, like, smaller and smaller. So at some point of time, because right now, like, everyone is more or less playing with the same cards. Like, it's like, hey, I'm using transformers, I get access to compute, and I get access to data. I don't expect to see, like, huge difference between, like, LLMs. And we can talk about benchmark, but, like, in some manner, like, it's also
In most
very
of use
tricky.
cases,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, you don't really need that
correct.
final feature that maybe has that Model X or Model Y has. And this is actually a good point, because I wanted also to touch on, beyond the features, there are also the biases that each model can bring. And I want to talk about responsible AI. When you use DeepSeek, it's trained on different data sets than maybe Falcon or OpenAI models or Anthropic. And you need to account for that when you're building your own small language model, your agents, and so on. Just to go to the foundation, can you talk a bit about what's responsible AI, what's the responsible use of AI, and how we think about this at AWS?
Yeah. So, like, at AWS is something that we have considered since the very beginning, right? And we could say, like, we are trying to make this technology transparent for the end user, right? By transparent, I mean, like, hey, we need to make sure that, like, these models or these AI systems, they are going to don't have any bias. That's why we are, for example, using licensed data to train our models. Needs to be fair, right? So needs to make sure when they're taking decisions, it's based on fairness. They need to have explainability, and we also have something that is called the AI cards, where, you can see how these models has been trained and so on. But also we need to make sure that, like, these models, they are going to be in some manner, like, they're going to react accordingly to what we are expecting from them, right? This also means, like, hey, I don't want your model to generate, like, a toxic content, or cannot be, like, a jailbreaking by the user, right? So we need to define guardrails where we can ensure that these models, they are going to behave in a good manner. Let's say, like, in a good manner, right? It's impossible to control 100%, but we are putting all the tools on the table to at least control, like, a 90 or 90+%. For example, if you are generating an image, right? Right now, you don't know if the image has been generated by an AI, by a model, or by a human. So in our models, we have something that we include, like, a watermark within the picture that for you, it's something that you cannot see. Yeah, you cannot define, like, okay, what is the watermark, but you can use a system to define, like, okay, this image was generated by AI. And this is super important because right now, with all the fake news and so on, this is something that is going to be transparent. That's why we also, like, release guardrails where, like, customers can use to define how the model is going to react in the manner that is not going to be, like, a toxic content or harmful content and so on. So we are, committed to all these different aspects. And again, it's impossible because we are based on a non-deterministic technology. And in many different ways, we don't know how neural networks come up with a specific answer. But we're trying to be there. And they're like another good example that, like automated reasoning checks that we are using within Quadrant. So
Yes, I wanted to touch
you
on
can use, this concept of, neurosymbolic AI, where you put together neural networks with, a symbolic AI, where you are using, the way to transform your text, for example, in different variables. So you can define, for example, for questions like is yes or no or false or true, when you are coming with an answer, you can verify like, okay, based on this is why I'm providing you the answer. So it's giving you this kind of, explainability and more certainty about what you are saying is truth or not, right? So we are very committed to that, and I think, still needs to be a lot of work to be done in the space, but I think we're taking the right steps.
The automated reasoning one was very interesting in the sense that we at AWS used the techniques that we were developing actually for security reasons.
Correct.
To have provable security and data access to get that into the AI space and get that new feature, new technology that will actually give you some sorts of additional level of guardrails against hallucinations and data getting not the right data that you expect. You've talked about at AWS, our way of thinking about responsible AI. This is implemented in the models that we developed. And we announced Nova, which is a set of models. Recently, Nova Premier went generally available. I want you to talk a bit about what does the Nova model, what sets Nova models apart from the others?
Yeah, so I think right now we have 6-7 different variants of Nova models. We have Nova Micro, that it's only, text only, text input, text output. Then we have multimodal with Nova Lite, Nova Pro, and Nova Premier. And as soon as we are, increasing in capabilities, of course, we are increasing, in cost and latency and so on. But we have Micro, Lite, Pro, and Premier. Premier is our top reasoning model, right, for very complex tasks that you say it was announced to be GA a couple of weeks back or something like that, right? So we're gaining in complexity across these models, but we also announced other multimodal models can generate not only text but images and videos. So we have Nova Canvas and Nova Reel. With Nova Canvas is text to image, but also image to image. So you can generate, images from our input text, or you can edit images based on, previous images, or you can even, let's say, fine-tune images. So I can give you an input text, I can give you an image as the reference, and you can even create something with the same style. And we have Nova Reel, where you can create videos, and I'm not sure if it's released yet, but we are going to be able to create videos up to a couple of minutes, right? So it's pretty cool. I've seen many videos created by Nova Reel, and it's amazing. So these are, for images and video. And we recently released Nova Sonic. Nova Sonic, it's quite amazing. I mean, I've seen some demos. Nova Sonic is a speech-to-speech model. You can literally talk to Sonic. And why I'm saying this speech-to-speech is because most of the models that are using voice, for example, they are using speech. They are,
They go back to text.
Correct. They get the voice, they transcribe into text, they do and that increases the latency and so on. So Sonic has been trained on voice data, and it's going to be able to talk in many different languages, and it's quite amazing for if you are thinking about all these generative AI assistants and so on, where you really need to have a very smooth experience. You cannot afford any delay, hey, I'm replying you with, and it's amazing because you are talking to Sonic, and say, hey, wait a minute, and it's able to understand that it's like a normal conversation. So you were asking me like, which is the main differentiator with Nova models, right? Right now, and you can see the benchmark, maybe they're not at the same level as, like top models, like top frontiers models like Claude, for example, or GPT. But there is this Quadrant. I really like it. It has been done by like artificial analysis.ai, where it compares different models, right? And as I said before, when you are selecting a model, you need 3 different aspects: cost, latency or speed, and like intelligence. If you want to like a balance to have a lot of intelligence, you are going to lose on latency, and probably it's going to be like super expensive. So when you put all these things together, not only like intelligence, that you may have like models, as I said before, like Anthropic, that they are like super intelligent, but when you put all these 3 different variables at the same time, you get this magic quadrant, what they call like the most attractive quadrant. And Nova models, they are there. So maybe they are not the most capable model. Maybe this is not the model with the latest latency. That actually, in the case of Nova Micro, is the fastest model out there in terms of like time to first token and so on. But when you put all these variables together, Nova is the complete winner. And I'm super bullish with Nova models for the future.
So there is also that fact that we have different models for different things, and that was part of the AWS culture from the beginning, to not have one single bullet solve every problem. That also gives that flexibility for customers to actually just use the model that they actually need for their use cases. I want maybe to touch on the infrastructure. Obviously, we had a lot of learning building Nova models. Can you touch on the infrastructure that was used and how that Nova was actually built?
Yeah, so I don't have all the details, but like this was trained on like a SageMaker HyperPod. And this is nice because like this is the technology that we are like selling to our customers to train these models, right? So many customers, they have trained their models on SageMaker HyperPod. And the same approach that like customers like Poolside, for example. Poolside is this French startup that like they are building software developer agents. They have trained their models on SageMaker HyperPod. This is the same way where like we train our models. I think we're using around like 100,000 P5 GPUs, I think it was. That is huge. Like it's a lot of compute. And one of the nice things about like a SageMaker HyperPod is because it's like so complicated to administrate these clusters. So let's say SageMaker HyperPod is going to be able to like to identify, for example, because like during the training process, every day you may have like, I don't know, 15, 20 instances that they're going to fail. You need to recover from the latest like a training point, and you need to keep the training. If you do this manually, it's very time consuming. With SageMaker HyperPod, it's going to be able to identify like the GPU that has failed. It's going to replace by a new GPU, and you can do this more or less out of the box. So, but again, what I like the most is like the same technology that we are selling to our customers, the one that we are using to train our models, and that's so cool. Yeah,
exactly. And the HyperPod team worked together with Nova in order to create those new features in HyperPod and make them available for everybody. Before we end, I want to ask maybe a question about, do you think that we will reach a point where models will be both creative, able to reason in a way that's where you cannot perceive if it's a human or a model?
Well, in many different ways right now, sometimes we are not able to differentiate if it's a human or not. Of course, as soon as you are getting deeper and deeper, you will figure out, okay, this is a human or this is not a human. I've seen already some systems based on LLMs that it's quite challenging to differentiate because, and this is more like a philosophical question, right? We identify what we are trying to elaborate in our mind, and in some manner, we are not even able to understand how our minds, they are working, right? So in some manner, we are not going to be able to differentiate this. But you were asking me also about, like, are these models creative or not, right? What that means creativity. I mean, like, if you take a look to many creators of our history, they has been, like, illuminated, or they has been, like, incentivized by other creators in the history, right? So if I'm a painter, if I'm a writer, maybe I must be influenced by other writers, and I'm creating my own style, right? But in some manner, I'm using others' data points to create my own style. It's the same with music. So in some ways, LLMs could be say like they are creative because they also have these hallucinations. They are seeing like many different data, and they can come up with some weird things. And that could be called creativity or not. I think, this is just more like a language problem about what do we mean by creativity. Reasoning is a different thing. I think reasoning, the models, they are trying to, they are not reasoning at all. They are trying to mimic our reasoning. And we come back to the first point again. It's even complicated to define how our brain is working to make some, like a reasoning process. I don't think we are there yet. If you are asking me, are we going to get there at some point of time? I strongly believe we are going to be there at some point of time, because I've seen things so far that makes me think that at some point of time we'll be there.
Before we end, any final thought for builders building AI solutions on AWS?
To be honest, I didn't come here to sell, but no, jokes apart, I think, like as I said before, AWS is the perfect place for builders. 90+% of the startups, they are building with AWS. We have many different programs. We have many different services. We provide the biggest flexibility on the market. So I think, like if you are building with AI, but also based on our experience that we have been doing AI for such a long time, it's the perfect place to come.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Eduardo.
It was a pleasure.
Very insightful discussion today. And that wraps up our fascinating conversation with Eduardo on AWS for AI podcast about the latest trends in generative AI. Eduardo's insight into the latest generative AI trends and innovations really highlights the incredible pace of innovation in this space. Before we sign off, don't forget to check out Eduardo's content on social media, where he continues to break down complex GenAI topics into actionable insights. You can find him at LinkedIn under Eduardo Ordax. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a rating and review. And as always, until next time, this is Hamza Mimi thanking you for listening. Keep exploring, keep innovating, and we'll catch you on our next episode.